If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, smash like, and drop a comment on what you'd do if the entire galaxy put a price on the deadliest creature alive. Would you run, or would you hunt it? Because today's story is about a man who didn't run. He chased the monster everyone else feared to name. The Galactic Warlords called it the apex predator. A creation that slipped its leash, cut through fleets like paper, and erased worlds off the star maps. They said it couldn't be killed. They said it didn't feel. So when the council gathered in orbit above a dying red star, every warlord in the room knew the same truth. Whoever captured it would control fear itself. The bounty they placed was obscene, enough credits to buy a planet, enough power to rewrite laws. Mercenaries, pirates, and syndicates all swore they'd be the one to bring its head. They were loud, hungry, desperate. And at the far end of that council chamber, a single human leaned against the cold metal wall and said nothing. Captain Rian Holt didn't do loud. His silence carried more weight than their boasts. A scar split his right eyebrow, a thin white reminder of a battle long past, and his eyes carried the dull patience of someone who'd buried too many friends. His armor wasn't polished like theirs. It was scratched, repaired, and repainted so many times it looked more like a diary than a uniform. When the meeting adjourned and the alien warlords scattered, Rian stayed behind, watching the stars through the viewport. The reflection of the bounty hologram shimmered across his visor. A swirling image of the creature, tall as a gunship, plated in living armor, eyes glowing like molten glass. Beneath it glowed the number that made every mercenary drool. He didn't look at the number. His gaze fixed on the image of the beast, and for the first time in years, his jaw tightened. That thing had a name once. The same name his squad whispered when the screams began. He remembered the sound of metal bending like paper, the flash of plasma light as his team vanished one by one. He'd escaped with a broken arm and a promise. Find it, end it. The voice of his ship's AI crackled through the comm in his ear. Captain Holt, council clearance has been granted. Do you wish to register your claim? He smiled faintly. Put me down for one hunt. Noted. Designation, Ironbound. He stepped out of the chamber and into the docking bay where his ship waited. A battered corvette held together by stubborn engineering and caffeine-fueled maintenance. Other bounty hunters laughed when they saw it, whispering that the human's rust bucket wouldn't survive a week. But Rian had flown the Ironbound through black holes and meteor storms. She was more than metal, she was the last living thing that remembered his squad's names. As the ship detached from the orbital ring, he keyed the engines to full burn. The ship's AI, Iris, spoke again, her tone light but concerned. Destination, Vrax 9. Death World Classification. Toxic atmosphere. Extreme fauna. 0 successful missions logged in the last 10 cycles. Sounds like home, Rian said, strapping himself into the pilot's chair. You were born on Earth, Captain. Vrax 9 makes Earth look like a playground. Maybe that's what it needs, a playground bully. The jump to FTL wasn't smooth. The ship shuddered, old metal groaning under the strain, but Rian's hands never left the controls. He watched the stars stretch into ribbons, his mind already running through strategies. He didn't have a team or backup, or even half the equipment the aliens carried. But he had something they didn't. He'd fought death worlds before and he'd survived by thinking sideways. He reviewed the data on the Predator as the ship tore through hyperspace. It had been engineered for war, designed to evolve faster than anything organic should. Every weapon used against it became data it could adapt to. It didn't hunt for food. It hunted to learn. The thought made Rian's stomach knot, not from fear but from anticipation. Captain, Iris interrupted softly. I'm detecting encrypted chatter on open mercenary channels. It seems others have already departed for Vrax 9. Let them. The more bodies on that moon, the easier it'll be to track the thing. Do you intend to share your findings with them? Not unless they beg. He leaned back, letting the hum of the ship settle around him. Outside the viewport, the blue-white tunnel of hyperspace rippled, casting faint reflections across his face. He'd spent years chasing shadows, half believing the Predator had died in some forgotten sector. Now, with the bounty posted, it was like the galaxy itself had reopened the wound. He could almost hear Cal's voice again, his old sergeant's laugh echoing in the back of his mind. If you ever find that monster, Holt, don't try to outfight it. I'll think it. That's what we humans do best. The words hit harder than expected. He exhaled slowly, letting them settle. A proximity alert beeped softly. Iris's tone shifted, curious. Captain, an incoming transmission. Unknown source. Audio only. Rian frowned. Patch it through. The speakers hissed with static, then a voice emerged, Deep, alien, distorted by distance. Human vessel, turn back. The hunt is not for your kind. He glanced at the comms display. No signal origin. No trace. Just the message repeating. I think they underestimate me, Rian murmured. They always do, Iris said. The message looped once more and Rian leaned forward, voice steady as a gun barrel. Tell them the hunt ends when I say it does. He killed the channel and adjusted course. The Ironbound's engines roared, slicing through the void like a blade. Hours later, hyperspace folded away, revealing a swollen green-brown moon below. Storms shimmered across its atmosphere, veins of lightning dancing between clouds of toxic gas. Even from orbit it looked like a living thing, breathing, shifting, waiting. Vrax 9, Iris whispered. I hope you packed enough bullets. Rian reached for his helmet, the scratches along its surface catching the dim cockpit light. Bullets won't matter. This one's personal. He sealed the visor with a hiss, the reflection of the moon glowing in its glass. Somewhere down there, the thing that had haunted his dreams was still alive. And now the galaxy wanted its head. Rian didn't care about the bounty. He just wanted its heartbeat to stop. As the Ironbound began its descent, the comms crackled again. Different this time, clearer, colder. The same alien voice, but now it said something new. You should not have come, human? Rian smiled beneath the helmet. Yeah, I get that a lot. The ship cut through the clouds, lightning washing the hull in silver fire. For the first time in years, Captain Rian Holt felt alive again. And below, something ancient stirred, waiting for him to arrive. The descent burned through the clouds like a spear through bone. Rian's drop pod shook violently, metal groaning under the pressure of Vrax 9's thick, poisonous atmosphere. Outside the reinforced glass, the storm looked alive, green lightning veined through crimson clouds, illuminating forests of blackened trees that seemed to twitch in the wind. The toxic rain hissed as it struck the pod's hull, leaving streaks that smoked away into vapor. Surface contact in 20 seconds, Iris reported. Her voice carried a strange calmness, the tone of someone who had seen too much and stopped pretending to be afraid. Rian gripped the harness. Activate environmental seal. Seal engaged. Atmospheric toxins at lethal concentrations. Recommend minimizing exposure to external air. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. The pod slammed into the jungle floor with a bone-shaking thud. Mud, ash, and fractured roots exploded outward. The cabin lights flickered once before stabilizing. For a heartbeat, the only sound was Rian's breathing, harsh and steady inside the helmet. Then the world outside came alive. He unlatched the harness and stood. The pod's hatch hissed open, and the air that poured in was thick and wet, heavy with the smell of rot and acid. His visor HUD struggled to keep up with the environmental readings. Numbers flickered wildly as radiation and toxin levels spiked beyond the usual danger scale. Vrax 9 didn't want him here. Good. He didn't want to be here either. He stepped into the sludge, boots sinking into a mix of moss and ash that squelched like breathing flesh. The jungle loomed around him, towering vines that glowed faintly blue, trees with bark as hard as metal. The soundscape was a chorus of hissing, clicking, and distant howls. Something massive moved somewhere far off, the rumble vibrating through the ground. He activated his wrist scanner, projecting a faint holographic map that barely reached 30 meters through the interference. Every reading pulsed with static, making it impossible to tell if the movement ahead was real or a phantom echo. Iris, upload topography overlay, he ordered. Already done. I've cross-referenced orbital scans. Terrain density exceeds expected values by 40%. The jungle appears to be growing over old structures. Rian raised an eyebrow. Structures. Ruins. Possibly from the facility that bred the predator. His grip on the rifle tightened slightly. Then that's where we start. Moving through Vrax 9's jungle felt like walking through the throat of a living creature. The vines brushed against his armor, slick with sap that hissed on contact. He kept his rifle up, scanning every shadow. He'd learned long ago that fear wasn't an obstacle, it was a warning system. And right now it was screaming. A low growl echoed behind him. He spun, rifle raised, but saw nothing. The scanner flashed again, picking up faint heat traces, small, fast-moving. Seconds later, two figures leapt from the underbrush, sleek and feline, their bodies covered in translucent scales. Rian fired once. The plasma round tore through the first creature, lighting the jungle in a brief flash of blue fire. The second circled him, teeth bared, tail whipping through the air. It lunged, but Rian ducked and jammed his knife into its side. The blade hissed as its monomolecular edge met bone. The creature shrieked, convulsed, then collapsed in the mud. Local wildlife is unwelcoming, Iris noted. They're just testing me, he muttered, wiping the blade clean. Everything here does. He examined the corpses. The flesh shimmered, shifting color even after death. Their blood crystallized into sharp flakes as it hit the air. Adaptive biology, he said quietly. Not natural. Possibly contamination from the predator's genetic residue, Iris replied. It's been here long enough to influence the ecosystem. Rian looked around at the twitching flora and sighed. This place is its nest now. For the next few hours he advanced carefully through the jungle, mapping terrain, marking signs of passage. Every so often he'd find the remains of something, armor fragments from other bounty hunters shredded beyond recognition. Some bore the insignia of the warlord clans. Others had human markings. Each corpse was a silent warning. As twilight descended, the air grew darker, the fog thicker. Bioluminescent spores floated through the gloom, casting ghostly patterns on his armor. Then he saw it. Impressions in the mud, each one the size of his torso, leading into the deeper forest. The predator's tracks. He knelt beside one, tracing the edge with gloved fingers. The weight distribution was uneven, suggesting a creature that walked upright but could shift to all fours when needed. Its claws had cut into the soil like blades. It's big, he whispered. But not careless. Predators rarely are, Iris said. He rose, following the trail. The jungle grew quieter with each step, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Then came the stench. Metallic, burnt, and sour. He found the source a moment later, a half-buried wreck, its hull scorched and split. A mercenary transport. Inside, bodies hung like ornaments, skewered to the walls by jagged spikes. Their armor had been stripped, their weapons melted down into slag. Rian stepped closer, inspecting the wounds. Precision kills. Straight through the neural cluster. It studied them before it struck. It's learning, Iris said. Or remembering. He crouched near one of the corpses and pulled a data tag from its belt. It flickered weakly to life, showing the insignia of Korvek's mercenary legion. Rian frowned. Korvek was no fool. If his team died this fast, the predator was far beyond the threat the warlords had warned about. A faint noise interrupted his thought, a whispering scrape, metal against stone. He froze. The jungle had gone utterly silent. Slowly he turned. Through the mist, a shape moved, too fluid to be human, too large to be animal. It paused at the edge of his vision, crouched low, the bioluminescent spores bending around it as though light refused to touch its skin. He aimed the rifle, breath slow and steady. I see you, he murmured. The shape tilted its head slightly. Then, as if amused, it melted back into the fog. Rian exhaled, lowering the weapon. It's watching me. Perhaps assessing you, Iris said. As prey. Then let's make sure it doesn't like what it sees. He moved on, scanning every shadow. The forest seemed to shift around him, alive and malicious. Every rustle, every flicker of light, carried the hint of something stalking him just out of sight. By the time he reached the ridge overlooking the valley, his suit's energy reserves had dipped below 60%. He set up a small perimeter beacon, enough to mask his presence for a few hours. The valley below glowed faintly with streams of molten light, part volcanic flow, part bioorganic secretion. Somewhere down there, the predator waited. Rian crouched at the edge, eyes narrow, calculating paths of approach and escape. For the first time since landing, the fear didn't feel like a warning anymore. It felt like anticipation. Iris, he said quietly, start recording. Already recording, Captain. What are your final orders for the night? He watched the valley and smiled grimly. Simple. If I don't make it back, delete the flight logs. No one else needs to follow me here. Lightning split the sky, lighting the valley in a flash of ghostly brilliance. And for an instant he saw it, standing on a ridge opposite him, motionless, watching. Then the storm swallowed it whole. Rian stayed still for a long time, pulse steady, eyes fixed on the empty ridge. He finally spoke, voice low, resolute. I found you. The jungle answered with silence. Only the wind moved, whispering through the twisted trees as Vrax 9 settled back into darkness, and the hunter prepared for the night to come. The night on Vrax 9 was a living nightmare. The sky pulsed with violet lightning, tearing through clouds thick enough to feel. Rian crouched behind the remains of a fallen transport, his armor slick with condensation. Every breath fogged the inside of his visor. He'd slept an hour, maybe less, before the sensors began to scream. The motion tracker flickered madly, pinging signals from all directions. Too many, too fast. He silenced the alarm. "It's playing with me," he muttered. Iris's voice came through in a whisper. "The creature is aware of your position. It's testing your perimeter defenses. Then it knows I'm alone." He powered down the external lights, letting darkness swallow him whole. Only the faint blue lines of his HUD glowed within the black, showing data feeds and flickering heat traces. He could hear it now, branches breaking, a low vibration through the ground. Each sound perfectly spaced, deliberate. The thing wasn't hunting for food. It was learning his rhythm, studying how he reacted. Rian stayed still. Stillness was power. If the predator wanted a reaction, it wouldn't get one. A faint shimmer moved across the clearing. The creature's camouflage bent the light around its form, distorting the air like heat rising from asphalt. It was close, too close. He raised the rifle, exhaled, and fired a short burst. The plasma bolts lit the jungle like a strobe. The first 2 shots missed, hissing against tree trunks, but the third found its mark. The shimmer exploded into motion as the predator let out a guttural snarl. It hit the ground hard, rolled, and vanished behind the wreckage. "Target confirmed," Iris reported, voice sharp. Rian didn't answer. He moved low, using debris as cover, keeping his breathing controlled. The jungle's bioluminescence dimmed as if the world itself wanted to hide the encounter. Then came the counterattack. A flash of movement, faster than sight. Something slammed into him from behind, sending him crashing through the dirt. His armor's impact gel absorbed most of it, but the air still left his lungs in a gasp. He rolled onto his back just in time to see the predator looming above, tall, armored in black organic plates that shimmered like oil. Its face was half covered by a ridged mask, its eyes burning a deep amber. Rian fired point blank. The plasma bolt struck its chest and barely singed the armor. The creature roared, lifting him effortlessly by the throat. The pressure crushed against his armor seal. Warning lights flared red across his HUD. "Reactor pressure breach imminent," Iris warned. "Working on it," he choked, jamming the rifle's barrel beneath the predator's jaw. He fired again. This time the creature dropped him, the blast tearing through part of its mask. It staggered back, blood sizzling where it hit the ground. Rian didn't waste the moment. He grabbed a fragmentation charge from his belt, armed it, and tossed it behind a fallen trunk. The explosion sent shrapnel slicing through the air, forcing the creature to retreat into the fog. When the dust cleared, it was gone. Breathing hard, Rian pressed a hand to his neck plate. The armor was dented but intact. "It's stronger than expected," he said. "Stronger, faster, and adapting," Iris replied. "Your last plasma shot lost 30% efficiency. Meaning it's learning how to counter it." "Precisely." He scanned the area again. No sign of movement. No trace of blood. It was gone but not far. He knew how predators worked, they didn't run, they circled. As he collected his scattered gear, something caught his eye near the wreck. A fragment of the predator's mask, still warm. Inside the curved surface, he saw faint inscriptions, symbols etched by hand. Not random markings. Words. He frowned. "Iris, record this pattern. Translate if possible." The AI processed quickly. Pre-galactic script. "It references a name, Karath. Names mean intent," he murmured. "Maybe it remembers what it used to be." Before Iris could respond, his motion tracker pulsed again. Multiple signals this time. Not the predator. The readings were too steady, too organized. He crouched low and switched to thermal view. Figures moved through the fog ahead, weapons drawn. Their armor gleamed silver under the lightning flashes. Alien mercenaries. Rian ducked behind a ridge as they advanced. Their leader, a towering reptilian with scaled armor and a mechanical eyepiece, gestured sharply. Rian recognized him immediately, General Korvac. A warlord's hound, ruthless and efficient. "Spread out," Korvac ordered in his guttural native tongue. "The humans nearby. Kill him if he interferes. The bounty belongs to us." Rian muttered under his breath. So much for professional courtesy. He watched their formation, tight but predictable. Soldiers trained for open warfare, not jungle ambushes. He let them pass, counting 3, then 4, then 6 troopers. When the last one crossed his position, he moved. One quick motion, one clean kill. He wrapped an arm around the soldier's neck, silencing him before the body hit the ground. He dragged it into the mud, stripped the comm device, and synced it to his own feed. Now he could hear their chatter. "Still no sign of the creature," one trooper said. Korvac's voice replied, low and amused. "It's here. I can smell it. But if we can't find it, the human will lead it to us." The implication hit Rian like a punch. They were using him as bait. He considered slipping away quietly, but the sound that came next froze him where he stood, a deep, wet crack followed by a scream. Plasma fire erupted across the valley below. The predator had struck again. He sprinted toward the chaos, ducking between trees. Bodies littered the ground, torn apart with surgical precision. The mercenaries fired wildly into the fog, their beams slicing nothing but air. One of them screamed, dragged upward by an unseen force. Korvek barked orders, rallying his men, but it didn't matter. The predator moved through them like a ghost, faster than they could react. Rian found cover behind a ridge and raised his rifle, trying to get a visual. Through the haze, he caught glimpses of the fight, the creature tearing through armor, deflecting plasma bolts with its claws, striking and vanishing in the same heartbeat. Then suddenly silence. The mercenaries were gone. Only Korvek remained, clutching a plasma blade, panting heavily. "Show yourself," he roared. The predator stepped from the fog, towering, half its mask gone, eyes glowing brighter now. Korvek swung wildly, but the creature caught his wrist and crushed it effortlessly. It leaned close, studying him, then snapped his neck in one motion. Rian watched, heart pounding, rifle raised but finger frozen on the trigger. The predator turned toward him slowly. For an instant, their eyes met across the mist, amber and human blue. He expected it to charge. Instead, it tilted its head, almost curious, before stepping back into the darkness. "Iris," he whispered, "are you recording this?" "Every frame." "Then note this, it had me in its sights and didn't take the shot." "Perhaps it doesn't see you as a threat," she offered. "Or maybe," he said quietly, "it's waiting to see what kind of predator I am." He stood alone among the ruins, the jungle whispering around him. Somewhere beyond the fog, Karath watched. The game had changed, and Rian knew the rules were no longer simple. He wasn't just hunting a monster anymore. The monster had chosen to let him live. Rian woke to silence. A heavy, unnatural kind that pressed against his ears and made the world feel hollow. His armor diagnostics scrolled across his visor, flickering weakly. Power reserves were low, oxygen filtration below 50%. His right arm throbbed with a deep, bruising pain where the predator had thrown him. He lay inside the remains of a collapsed structure, old metal walls half swallowed by vines and time. The faint light of dawn filtered through cracks above, painting the air with a ghostly blue. He pushed himself upright, grimacing. His surroundings were familiar in an uncomfortable way, ancient ruins repurposed by nature, the skeleton of a forgotten laboratory. On the floor nearby sat a small container, military-grade med supplies, unopened. He hadn't brought it. He froze, realizing what that meant. "Iris," he murmured. His voice rasped through the helmet. "Scan the area." "Already scanning." Thermal readings indicate no hostiles within 20 meters. However, the AI hesitated, which it almost never did. "There are traces of the predator's biological residue near the medical container." He stared at the box, then approached cautiously. The latch had been pried open, but the seal remained intact. Inside were sterile bandages, coagulants, and an injector of nanofiber mesh. The exact kind his armor interface could use. "It brought this," Rian said slowly. "It wants me alive." "That would suggest either curiosity or strategy," Iris replied. He ignored the ache in his arm long enough to inject the nanofiber. The stinging warmth spread instantly, sealing the bruised tissue beneath his armor. The relief was immediate, but it came with a deeper unease. Mercy was not something predators offered. Rian moved deeper into the ruins. The walls were lined with shattered tanks and faded logos of the Warlords military division. The air smelled of decay and machine oil. He brushed dust off a console and powered it with a portable cell. The screen blinked alive, lines of alien script crawling across it. "Iris, translate." "Running decryption." A pause, then her voice sharpened. "Captain, these files are genetic profiles. The predator wasn't created as a weapon. It was designed as an experiment in adaptive evolution. The Warlords used it to perfect living warforms. And it worked too well," Rian muttered. The next file contained footage. He played it. The image was old, distorted, but clear enough to see rows of containment pods. Inside them were early prototypes, less refined, more monstrous. In the center stood a figure, taller, leaner, its armor fused seamlessly to its flesh. Its eyes burned through the grainy feed. The tag beneath read Subject Karath. The video ended with alarms and screams. Then static. Rian exhaled, understanding blooming slowly like a bruise. The predator had been betrayed, hunted not because it rebelled, but because it evolved beyond their control. A living weapon that had begun to think. A faint sound behind him made him turn. Karath stood in the doorway. Even wounded, it was enormous, its body a tapestry of scars and living armor. Half of its mask was missing, revealing a mouth lined with symmetrical fangs. Its gaze was steady, unflinching. Rian's rifle was already aimed. His pulse stayed level. "You could have killed me while I was unconscious," he said. "Why didn't you?" The creature didn't move. Then, slowly it spoke, its voice low, mechanical, filtered through broken vocalizers. "You are not prey." The words carried weight, guttural and uneven but comprehensible. "Not prey," Rian repeated quietly. "Then what am I?" Karath tilted its head slightly as if studying him. "You fight as I do. For memory. For the dead." It gestured toward the med kit, claws glinting in the light. "I remember betrayal. I remember their fear." Its voice faltered like a damaged recording. "They made me to kill. But I learned to choose." Rian lowered the rifle a fraction. The realization settled heavy in his chest. "They called you a monster because you stopped following orders." Karatha's eyes narrowed. "Because I stopped killing when they said kill." For a moment neither spoke. The rain outside thickened, pattering against the roof. Rian holstered his weapon, the decision unspoken. "They'll come back," he said. "The warlords won't leave this unfinished. You and I both have a price on our heads now." The creature seemed to understand. "Then we hunt them." Rian's expression hardened, something fierce kindling behind his calm. "You're proposing an alliance." Karath straightened, a ripple of muscle moving beneath its armor. "Not alliance. Balance. They made you fragile but clever. They made me strong but bound. Together," it paused, searching for the word. "Unstoppable." Rian almost smiled. "That's the first smart thing anyone said to me in years." He pulled up the holographic projection from his wrist device. The signal beacon Korvek's team had used still pulsed weakly on the edge of the valley. He tapped it, and a series of coordinates appeared. "The warlords will send reinforcements here to recover their data and clean up the evidence. If we hijack their comm array, we can broadcast proof of what they've done." Karatha's gaze flicked to the ruins. "Truth is a weapon." "Exactly." Rian looked at the towering creature beside him. "You fight to survive. I fight to make them choke on their lies. Maybe we both get what we want." He began setting charges around the structure, stripping power cells from broken consoles. Karath watched with silent curiosity before crouching to help, its claws deftly slicing cables with precision. It learned fast, faster than anything Rian had ever seen. When they finished, he checked the detonator. "This'll draw every scanner in orbit. The warlords will come running." Karatha's mandibles clicked softly. "Then they die here." Rian met its gaze. There was no hesitation, no pretense of trust, just mutual understanding born of necessity and vengeance. "We make our stand in the valley. You know this terrain better than anyone." "I was born here," Karath said simply. "I will die here, or leave free." Rian nodded. "Let's aim for the second option." They stepped into the storm. The wind howled through the ruins, carrying the scent of ozone and decay. Together they moved through the jungle, silent and efficient. Rian marked waypoints while Karath scouted ahead, its movements blending with the landscape. Hours passed as they rigged the valley, trip mines, EMP bursts, pressure detonators hidden beneath roots and rocks. Each trap was a conversation between two predators who spoke different languages but shared the same intent: end the hunt on their terms. When the final charge was set, Rian crouched behind a ridge, watching the sky. Distant lights flickered against the clouds, dropships entering orbit. "They're here," he said. Karath stood beside him, silent, its gaze fixed on the heavens. "Warlords come with armies," it said softly. "But they forget, war begins with one." Rian smiled beneath his helmet. "Then let's remind them." As thunder rolled over the valley, the Ironbound's orbiting AI relayed the first signs of incoming transmissions. Encrypted orders, tactical formations, kill squads preparing to descend. Rian's pulse remained steady. For the first time since his squad's death, he felt something other than loss. It wasn't peace. It was purpose. He glanced at Karath. "You ready?" The creature bared its teeth in what almost resembled a grin. "I was made ready." Rian checked the detonator one last time and whispered, "Then let's start the war." Above them, the sky cracked open with fire as the first warlord ships began to descend. The jungle shuddered. And side by side, the human and the predator waited, not as enemies but as the only two beings in the galaxy who refused to be owned. The first dropships pierced the cloud cover like falling stars, engines screaming over the storm. Rian crouched behind a ridge, detonator in hand, eyes scanning the valley below. Every shadow seemed to twitch, every flicker of light a potential ambush. He felt the adrenaline tighten in his chest, but unlike before there was no fear. This was a reckoning. Karath crouched beside him, massive and silent, its claws scraping lightly against the rocks. Its amber eyes glimmered, fixed on the descending fleet. There was a strange elegance in its stillness, a predator fully aware of its dominance. Rian studied it for a moment and a thought struck him. This creature, forged by warlords to obey and kill, had learned morality. It had learned choice. And right now that choice was to fight beside him. The first drop hit the forest floor. Troopers spilled into the mud, weapons blazing. Energy bolts lanced through the air, carving scorch marks into the trees. Rian fired his rifle, each shot calculated, precise, cutting the corridors of the jungle to funnel the enemy toward their traps. Karath moved like liquid shadow, faster than sight. It tore through squads with calculated force, claws and teeth taking what weapons could not. The alien soldiers fired blindly, panic spreading like wildfire. Rian ducked behind a fallen tree and lobbed an EMP charge, sending a wave of sparks across a cluster of assault mechs. Servos screamed, circuits fried, and metal went limp. Karath followed instantly, tearing the immobilized machines apart and tossing them aside. Through it all, Rian could feel the rhythm forming. This was no longer a hunt. They were orchestrating a symphony of destruction. The Predator's intelligence and his own tactical mind synchronized, each anticipating the other's moves, adapting instantly. "Captain," Iris warned. "Incoming command unit. Reptilian species high-ranking. Likely Korvek himself." Rian's jaw tightened. Korvek had survived this far, his arrogance intact. "Good," he muttered. Then the finale's just getting started. Through the twisted canopy, Korvek's ship descended, towering and armored. He leapt out, plasma blade drawn, eyes fixed on Rian. The soldiers around him reorganized, trying to flank the duo. Rian took a deep breath and sprinted from cover, firing at the flanking units, drawing them away. Karath emerged from the shadows behind the main group, silent as death. Rian's mind raced as he calculated angles, trajectories, and timing. He reached the last of the planted charges, his fingers working the controls. One press, and the entire valley would erupt, forcing Korvek into a choke point. He glanced at Karath. The creature inclined its head, acknowledging the signal. They moved together, predator and human, an unstoppable force born of survival and vengeance. Korvek swung his blade, a shimmering arc of plasma aimed directly at Rian. He sidestepped, rolling toward cover, firing point-blank into the mercenary troops. Karath intercepted the command unit's guards, claws snapping, armor splitting under the force of the attack. Korvek's scream cut through the chaos as the predator struck with precision, tearing the mercenaries from the command unit's protection. The valley erupted. Explosions ripped through the forest, fire and debris raining down. Smoke and energy discharge made every step perilous, but Rian pressed forward, his focus unwavering. Korvek had only one thought: survival. Rian had only one: justice. Karath had only one: freedom. They met in the heart of the chaos. Rian ducked a plasma slash, flipping over Korvek and slashing with his own blade. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal. Korvek snarled, swinging wildly, but Rian was faster, lighter, anticipating every strike. Behind him, Karath moved like a storm incarnate, tearing at the command ship's hull, striking the remaining soldiers with brutal efficiency. Rian felt a surge of something he hadn't allowed himself to feel since his squad died: clarity. Pain, fear, and fury had all sharpened into one focused edge. He blocked another strike and whispered through gritted teeth, "This ends now." Korvek lunged one last time, desperate. Rian sidestepped, grabbed the EMP blade he had rigged earlier, and drove it through the warlord's chest plate. Sparks and plasma flared as the device activated, immobilizing Korvek instantly. The warlord struggled, eyes wide with disbelief. Rian pressed closer, voice cold, measured. "You made me into your prey. Now watch me claim the hunt." Korvek's resistance ended in a single sharp exhale as the EMP blade neutralized his systems. Rian stepped back, surveying the battlefield. The remaining soldiers fled, their formations broken, their discipline destroyed. Karath emerged from the smoke, standing tall beside him. Its armor bore scratches, some cuts, but its stance was unbroken. The creature turned its head toward Rian, a soundless acknowledgement passing between them. They had survived the impossible. They had redefined the rules of the hunt. Rian activated the comm relay, broadcasting the stolen data and footage of the Warlords' genetic atrocities. Across the galaxy, systems lit up with undeniable evidence of betrayal and abuse. Worlds that had feared the Predator's wrath now saw the human who had challenged it, and the truth of the creature that had been labeled a weapon, a monster, a thing to be hunted. Through the chaos, Rian felt the weight of every fallen comrade, every life lost to these wars. But he also felt a shift, something fundamental. Humanity, in its resilience and ingenuity, had found a way to stand among predators and gods alike. Karatha's presence was a testament to choice, and together they had proven that survival was more than brute strength. It was intelligence, cunning, and morality. The storm began to ease, and the first rays of alien dawn pierced through the clouds. Rian and Karath stood at the heart of the valley, the silence of victory settling around them. He turned to the Predator, voice steady despite the exhaustion and injuries. "We made it." Karatha's amber eyes met his, the faintest movement of what might have been recognition, or respect. "We survived, together." Rian nodded. He could feel the pull of the galaxy, its systems aware that something fundamental had changed. Humans were clever, unpredictable, and relentless. The apex predator had learned that strength alone did not dictate the end of a hunt. They moved toward the Ironbound, the wreckage of the battlefield shrinking behind them. The ship's hull gleamed faintly under the first light of dawn. Rian keyed the launch sequence, the engines humming to life with a promise of speed and escape. Karath stepped aboard, massive frame folding into the hold. Rian's hands tightened on the controls, his mind already calculating their next path. He felt no fear, only resolve, tempered by the knowledge that the galaxy would not soon forget the day a human and a predator stood side by side and turned the hunt into a reckoning. As the Ironbound climbed out of the atmosphere, streaking toward the stars, Rian allowed himself a small, rare smile. "Guess the bounty's mine after all." Karatha's mandibles clicked softly, an almost approving sound. "No. Ours." And with that, the ship jumped to faster than light, leaving the shattered remnants of Vrax 9 behind. In the silent expanse of the galaxy, two predators now moved as one, human ingenuity and apex instinct, unstoppable, unbowed, and unclaimed. The stars stretched ahead, a canvas for the stories yet to be written, but Rian knew one truth above all: the galaxy had underestimated humanity. Once again. And this time it would remember.